everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FPL Fanzone. Finally, the Premier League is back. A 2-week hiatus for the international break, and we've got a lot to talk about before the Gameweek 4 fixtures. My name's Nick, and in today's episode we're going to look at the fixtures for the next 4 weeks before the next international break. We're going to look at some transfer decisions, either or, looking at player comparisons in a couple of key areas. We're going to look at the captain choices for Gameweek 4, and then look at my team and my decisions before the Gameweek 4 deadline. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's have a quick look at the fixture difficulty rating according to the FPL website. The challenge that I have with this is that it gives limited functionality in terms of being able to filter over a period of time. So you can filter by individual game weeks, as you can see here. The screenshot on the left is just in alphabetical order. The screenshot on the right is filtered by fixture difficulty rating for Gameweek 4. And the challenge that I have with this is that there's no clear explanation as to what metrics they're using to say whether a game is difficult or not. Are they measuring it difficulty on the result of the game? So for example, let's take the first one there, Arsenal versus Tottenham. North London derby. I'm an Arsenal fan, but I look at this game and I go, there's goals available for both sides. The Tottenham defence is very, very weak. So if I look at Arsenal attackers, I feel like there's opportunities there for them to get points. So I don't see this as a red fixture for Arsenal attackers. If I look at Tottenham attack, they've not looked phenomenal this season, although they did score 4 goals against Everton, who looked terrible. But I look at that Tottenham attack against Arsenal defence and I go, yes, okay, I could see that. I can see there potentially Tottenham scoring a goal. So my Arsenal defenders, I'm not expecting a clean sheet this week. So from a defence perspective, yes, it's potentially a red. But from an attack perspective, it's certainly not a red in my eyes. And that's the same for Spurs as well. I mean, for Spurs it's slightly different. The Arsenal defence is significantly stronger in my opinion. And therefore it would be a tougher game both defensively and attacking. But from the Arsenal perspective, I feel that Tottenham defence is very weak. And it would easily be one that I'd be happy to target most weeks as well. So for me, when I look at the fixture difficulty rating, it's difficult to understand what they're measuring as the difficult part for this, and that's just one example. So I actually also use the Fantasy Football Hub's Fixture Analyzer, and this gives you much more functionality around filtering on ranges. You can choose it whether you're looking at attacking data, defensive data, you're looking for clean sheets, you're looking for goals scored. So it gives you a lot more options and understanding of how they're rating and what they're rating for. So here we're looking at the fixture planned for game weeks 4 to 7, and the reason I've chosen that time frame is that in game week 7, between game week 7 and game week 8, there's another international break. So it feels like it's a good, let's focus on the next 4 weeks, and then we can then target what we're going to do after the next international break. So here from the attack perspective, and I've put that on as one of the filters, you can see that the top 4 teams with good attacking fixtures are Brighton, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, and surprisingly West Ham. They weren't one that were on my radar. But when you look at this, you go, okay, Brighton's got Ipswich, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, and Tottenham. So it thinks that actually Tottenham and Chelsea are weak defences and they're good opportunities for an attacking team. So you can start to think people there like Danny Welbeck, Mitoma. You can think of João Pedro, for example. With Aston Villa, they've got Everton at home, Wolves at home, Ipswich away, and then Man United at home. So again, it's classifying them all as really green fixtures. And if you look at the teams that have conceded the most goals so far in the first 3 games, you've got Everton, Wolves and Ipswich are all up there, and they've got them in the next 3 games. So certainly you should be looking at your Aston Villa attackers. Now, we know that they've not necessarily given a lot of returns at this moment, but you could go for an outside punt, someone like John Duran. But obviously, if you've got Ollie Watkins, absolutely stick with him now for the next 3 weeks. Don't let him go before those plum fixtures for the next 3. And then the same with Crystal Palace. Eze has looked great, has had lots of opportunities to score goals, only just finally got one in the last game before the international break. But his next fixtures are Leicester at home, Man United at home, Everton away, Liverpool at home. Now, the Liverpool at home one in game week 7 looks like a tough fixture because they've been really good defensively, but the other three certainly look like fixtures that you could tap. So having Eze in your team does certainly, or Mateta, for example, would be someone that you could keep moving forward. And then the same with Bowen. He's obviously not as well owned as some of the other midfielders in that price range right now. But looking at those fixtures, Fulham, Chelsea, Brentford and Ipswich, there's a lot of attacking opportunities there. And Bowen is just consistent in terms of getting those goals. So certainly something to think about in terms of that attacking options on that as well. Interestingly, if you look down towards sort of the midfield of this table, you've got Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea and Man City. Now, this is typically where most of our premiums are coming from. Think Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah, Haaland, Saka, Cole Palmer. They're all sitting here in middle of the table fixtures here. So a lot of them are playing each other. So Arsenal have got Man City, for example, and vice versa. So when you think about your premium assets, maybe they're not going to have as much attacking opportunities, but the fact that they're premium means that they're probably fixture proof and will be okay during this period. And then when you get to the bottom of the table, when you look at the attack section, you've got Leicester, Spurs, Nottingham Forest and Newcastle. Now, Newcastle surprised me because I look at their fixtures that they've got here, and they've got Wolves away, who have conceded a huge amount of goals. They conceded 6 against Chelsea. They've got Everton, who conceded 4 against Tottenham and have conceded the most amount of goals in the league so far. So why they're quite bottom of the table in this fixture, I don't understand it. So whenever you're looking at data, and obviously whichever type of data you look at, you're going to see different sets of results. So you need to also formulate your own opinions on what that looks like. So let's move on to what defensive fixture ratings look like for the next 4 game weeks. Moving on to the defense fixtures, what this is actually measuring is projected clean sheets over the next 4 game weeks here. And interestingly, if you look at the top 4 again, you've got Villa, Chelsea, Brighton and Crystal Palace. Now, given the fact that Brighton, Villa and Crystal Palace were both in the attack one as well, it really makes sense that if you're wildcarding this week, that you'd be looking at teams Villa, Brighton and Crystal Palace, because at least for the next 4 game weeks they've got good attacking and defensive fixtures here as well. As you get down into the mid-table here, it's a real mixed bag, but you've got Southampton, Leicester, Brentford and Bournemouth. Realistically, I'm not going to be relying on any of those defences to get me clean sheets. So I would be avoiding those. And then when you get to the bottom of the table in terms of defensive plans, you've got Manchester United, Fulham, Nottingham Forest and Wolves. So again, if you're looking for defenders, you certainly wouldn't be picking them from those teams. You've got Arsenal, Man City are sitting in the middle. Liverpool, I'm really surprised because they've had a really strong defence so far. 3 clean sheets out of 3 games. They're looking really solid at the back. Now, they are sitting 5th on this table just behind Crystal Palace. But with Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves and Crystal Palace coming up in the next 4, I could easily see 2, maybe 3 clean sheets in out of the next 4 as well for them. So I am certainly considering Liverpool as a defence, that because I don't have anyone in that space at the moment. But let me know, guys, are you surprised by these fixtures? Do you feel that they're correct? Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Let me know in the comments below what you think around where I'm going to be targeting over the next 4 game weeks. So given now that we know which teams we're targeting based on the fixtures over the next 4 weeks, here's some of the transfer targets, and I've done some player comparisons using a mixture of data from the FPL website and from the Fantasy Football Hub player analysis comparisons pages. So first up here, we've got Aston Villa defence. Do we go Lucas Dean or Ezri Konsa? And there's a couple of things to consider here. Lucas Dean has started to find himself nailed for minutes at the moment at the start of the season, but with Champions League coming in between game week 5, then there is a chance for him to potentially be rotated with Maatsen, but that's not been confirmed yet. It's just something to consider, that may be a bit of a headache later on. In terms of obviously the fixtures, they've got really good fixtures over the next 4. Everton at home, Wolves at home, Ipswich away, and then Manchester United at home. None of those teams are scoring freely at the moment. So as a defensive option, Aston Villa look really great over the next 4 weeks. If you look at comparisons in terms of points, Lucas Digne's got 11 versus Ezri Konsa's 5. Everything else is very, very similar, except when you look at their heat maps. And what you'll see here is that Lucas Digne gets significantly further forward more regularly than Ezri Konsa, which means that there's going to be more options for him to put crosses into the box. Although looking at that, you can see that Ezri Konsa will have some goal threat because he's up there for corners as well. So really, it's a little bit hit and miss at the moment. Obviously, Lucas Digne does have an assist to his name already on that. So between the two, they're both 4.5 million. Lucas Digne is only 6.1% owned, and Ezri Konsa is 13% owned. So it would be a real differential if you did have Digne in your team at this stage. But certainly ones to consider looking at that Villa defence. The next one that's really interesting for me is the Liverpool defence. And while they were only 5th on that chart, I think they've looked really, really strong defensively. And their fixtures do look great going forward. So Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away, and then Crystal Palace away. Which will be a slightly tougher one, and maybe not expecting a clean sheet there, but they've looked really, really strong so far. And then you've got 2 premium options. Now my defence is already filled with premium, and I've got 1.4 million in the bank that would allow me to move up to Alexander-Arnold. If you look at the two, again, they're very, very similar in terms of obviously they both kept the same number of clean sheets. Neither of them have had any goal involvements at this stage. But you'll notice that Trent's numbers in terms of expected goal involvements are significantly higher than Andy's at the moment. So he'd certainly be one, which is why he's $1 million more expensive. He's also owned by 31%. So any points that he does get, a lot of people are going to have that as well. But in the opposite side, if you're looking at effective ownership, Andy Robertson's only got 7.3% owned. And therefore, when he gets points, he's going to be a big differential and will certainly help boost your rank. So for me at the moment, I'm leaning towards going Andy Robertson and using that extra money that I've got elsewhere more further up the field. But it does make sense as well if you wanted to just cover the Trent ownership to have him in there because he's got slightly more attacking threat on there. The other thing to consider as well is you can see that they both take corners as well, so there's opportunities for them to get assists from that as well. So for me, still very much a toss-up between the two. Right now, if I had to choose, and this is a serious consideration for me this week, I would probably be leaning towards Trent Alexander-Arnold just because of the effective ownership, and he's got slightly more attacking threat according to the data. But again, it's still a decision that I need to make. But right now, if you had to put me on the spot, it would be Trent. Next up, and moving on to the forwards, we saw that Brighton have really good fixtures, especially in the next 2, Ipswich at home, Nottingham Forest at home. And then Chelsea and Tottenham away. Again, neither of them have looked really strong defensively at the moment, so there certainly should be opportunities there to get goals, even if they don't win the game and pick up points. Now, right now, Danny Welbeck has scored more points. It's 23 versus 18. His expected goals, he's playing in a slightly more forward position, is higher. Despite the fact that Danny Welbeck has an assist, the expected assist is higher for João Pedro. Now, when I look at the heat maps between the two, for me, it seems that João Pedro is more of an attacking threat for me. He's more all over the pitch. He's much more involved in the gameplay, just looking at those 2 heat maps, which is why I have picked him. They're both 5.7 million. But Danny Welbeck is almost owned by half as many players as João Pedro. So anyone who's got him at the moment is really jumping up the ranks because of that differential rating there as well. I already transferred in João Pedro very early on A lot of that was because I watched other content creators who mentioned that there may be potential minutes risk for Danny Welbeck. I'm not sure whether that's just an opinion. I haven't seen any minutes risk for him right now. They've got no European games, so there shouldn't be any conflict or rotation in there as well. So right now, I went for João Pedro. I went early because I try and catch the price raise. I still think he's a fantastic option. There's not a huge amount between the two, but just looking at the heat maps, I'm happy with my choice for that. But let me know in the comments below. Are you considering these two players or anyone else from Brighton? Let me know in the comments below, and I'm happy to give my comments back. Next up, this is the first of the comparison of players from different teams. And there's a lot of debates at the moment around Alexander Isak and Ollie Watkins. People transferring them out and transferring them in, looking at the fixtures. Now, I already own Alexander Isak, and if you look at it so far, 1 goal, 1 assist, 16 points. He's got better expected points, better expected goals, better expected assists than Ollie Watkins. But if you look at Ollie Watkins' fixtures over the next 4, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich and Man United, I think there's goals there. He's looked like he could have scored 3 or 4. He's missed a couple of absolute sitters. He's only playing about 70 minutes at the moment. And John Duran is coming on and looking great at end of game. So some concerns around Ollie Watkins is that there are in the European games coming up with Champions League. And whether or not he'll be rotated or be still playing less minutes because he's giving time to play in the Champions League as well. And so therefore there is that minutes risk because Duran is looking good. But really, looking at those fixtures, if you've already got Ollie Watkins, you can't let him go now. Surely, Everton have conceded huge amounts of goals. Wolves have conceded huge amounts of goals. Ipswich are a newly promoted side. And Man United are not looking strong at the back right now. So if I had Ollie Watkins, I'd certainly be keeping him in my team right now. But I have Alexander Isak, so I'm happy with that choice right now. Again, he's not set the world on fire in the first 3 games. Obviously, one of them, they went down to 10 men, so that reduced their attacking threat. But again, looking at the games moving forward, Wolves away, certainly goals to be had there. Fulham away, a tougher fixture, certainly more defensively solid than Wolves have been. Man City at home is going to be a tough one. I don't see there being a huge amount of opportunities there. But Man City do concede consolation goals a lot, so there is still a chance for him to pick up some points. And then Everton away, according to the Premier League fixture ticker, is a grey. But Everton are conceding so many points. That's a green in my eyes. So certainly out of the next 4, I could see getting with 3 returns out of that, and I'd be happy with that as an option. But let me know in your teams. Do you have Alexander Isak? Do you have Ollie Watkins? Are you looking to switch, to downgrade, to save some money, to upgrade because you've got some money in the bank? Let me know in the comments below what you're doing and your thoughts on these 2 players. Next up, we've got a bit of an unfair comparison here. We've got a midfielder versus a forward, and a couple of things to take in consideration when you're considering that is, first and foremost, midfielders have more routes to points with the extra points per goal and the point for the clean sheet as well. But looking at these 2, right now, Man City away, Tottenham away in the next 2, most people won't be considering Brentford's assets right now. But from Gameweek 6 onwards, their fixtures swings quite a lot, and people will be looking at bringing them in. So let's have a quick look at their numbers. Brian Bremo, with Ivan Toney going, we expect him now to be on penalties, which again gives him another route to points over Johan Visser at the moment. So 24 points so far, expected points at 4.17 per game. Good goal threat, good assist threat. He's already got 3 goals. He's got the on penalties as well. Now, those next 2 fixtures are highlighted as red, but as I just mentioned in the last slide, that Man City do concede consolation goals. They win, they get 2, 3, they'll concede 1. Maybe they concede first and then go on and score 3 or 4. But they are conceding goals, and therefore both of these are an option to get an attacking return in that fixture. And with Tottenham, Tottenham are struggling to keep clean sheets at the moment. They kept one against Everton, who don't really have much of an attack. But if you look at their other games, their other fixtures that they've played, they're conceding goals. So again, I still think there are attacking returns for both of these players. And spoiler alert, I brought in Brian and Bremo at the start of the international break to capture a price rise. And I'm hoping that he will get me returns, at least from the Tottenham game. I've got him benched currently for the Man City game. But then after that, you've got West Ham at home and Wolves at home, and I think there's opportunities there for these guys to get points. So looking at the heat maps again, Brian and Bremo looks like there's a lot of that attacking threat. He's taking corners from one of the sides as well, which gives him more opportunities to get an assist, for example. Johan Wissa is more focused around the centre of the box, so will get a lot of opportunities, has already got 2 goals, has already got an assist. So both of these are fantastic options. I just don't have any space in my front line at the moment. So for me, I've gone for Brian and Bremo. But let me know, do you think I've made the wrong choice? Are you considering them now? Do you agree that Man City and Tottenham are ways that they can get attacking points? Or am I just wishful thinking? Or are you waiting till game week 6 when their fixtures swing? Let me know in the comments below. Next up, let's focus a little bit now more specifically on game week 4. And the big challenge this week is captaincy options. So I've put up a list here of 6 people that I would consider having as captain options for game week 4. First and foremost, let's talk about Haaland. Well, everyone knows he's a phenomenal player. He's scored 2 hat-tricks back to back. Can he make it 3? Can he make it a hat-trick of hat-tricks? Potentially, but there is a bit of concern around Haaland at the moment. So he had some unfortunate news that a close family friend had died earlier in the week, and so he is expected to have flown home and to see them. He's now back, but just whether or not, Pep has come out in the pre-match conference saying that he'll have to see around whether his mental state is right and whether he's good to play. So there is a potential minutes risk, or whether he'll play at all at the moment, so he is yellow flagged. Next up is Mo Salah. Nottingham Forest at home. He's my captain for this week. Expected 8.3 points according to the AI predictor on Fantasy Football Hub. In phenomenal form at the moment. Goals, assists, clean sheet points. There's just lots of avenues there. He's on penalties. I think certainly a good option for anyone this week. Surprisingly, when I look at the AI predicted points, Eze is 3rd highest on the list, so he wasn't even someone that I really considered, but he is playing Leicester at home, so it is a newly promoted side. He's looked great in the first couple of games, obviously been unlucky with a couple of in the first 2, but did get his first goal of the season in the last game. So I think there's a real opportunity there, and he's currently sitting, after I reviewed the data, he's sitting as my vice captain for the week. And then in the bottom row here, so Saka versus Tottenham away. Again, Tottenham don't keep clean sheets very often. I think there's opportunities there. Saka is the go-to person. He's on penalties. He is involved in everything at the moment. I think involved in 80% of all Arsenal's goals this season so far. So certainly someone that I would be happy to have as a captain if I didn't have maybe the top 3 above. Next up, Ollie Watkins. Right at the moment is out of form. He's getting the chances. He's just not putting them away. But Everton at home, I think he'll get a hatful of chances this week. So really an opportunity if you own Ollie Watkins to captain him in this week. Go a little bit differential. There's some minutes risks. He obviously didn't go away with England for the international break. They cited that he had an injury, but he's been playing less minutes, so I think it's good for him to have that time, to have that rest, and I think he'll be perfectly fit to play for this game week. And then the same with Cole Palmer. He didn't go away for the international break. Said there was an injury. I'll put it as the international injuries that happen to players that don't go away. Interestingly for Cole Palmer, he's also not been selected for their European Cup side. So he won't go away for any of the European fixtures. So he'll be fit for all of the Premier League ones. He is on penalties. So I think he's a perfectly good captain choice. It is away to Bournemouth, who are slightly better defensively than some of the other fixtures on this list. But of course, he's on penalties. He is involved in all of their goals at the moment. So certainly not a bad choice to have for Game Week 4. But let me know in the comments below, who's your captain for this week? Mine's Mo Salah, only because I don't have Haaland. My vice captain is Eze. But is it anyone else going differential? Is there anyone that I've missed? Let me know. And finally, moving on to my team for Game Week 4. Now, I did have 2 free transfers this game week. I used them almost before Game Week 3 had even finished, bringing in Brian Mbeumo and João Pedro for Bailey and Mateta. Now, the reason I did that was twofold. The first and foremost, Bailey got injured, which is a real shame because he's got a great fixture run coming up. But that yellow flag meant that his price was going to drop. I know that Mbeumo is going to, he's got great fixtures coming up, but I still think there's some attacking opportunities against City and Tottenham in the next 2. So I brought him in knowing that his price was going to go up. And I'm also conscious that his price will certainly go up in Game Week 6 if he does get a return against either of those 2. When people start to look at wildcarding for Game Week 6. And then João Pedro was a move down from Mateta. Mateta hasn't hit the heights that he was hitting last season. I know he was playing at the Olympics, came back late for the Premier League start, but wasn't quite performing it. His price was about to drop and João Pedro's price was about to rise. So I jumped on that. I managed to capture both, miss both price drops and capture both price rises. So for me, that was a 0.4 swing. It also leaves me $1.4 million in the bank. So let's look at my team in more detail. And my defence is a real struggle this week. Flecken away to Man City. I just don't see any points there as well. Saliba and Gabriel away to Tottenham. Now, while that Arsenal defence is premium, that Tottenham attack is strong. There is a real chance there that I get no clean sheets on there. So I am considering potentially taking a -4 to move one of those out. And then Gvardiol against Brentford at home. Now I'm hoping for a clean sheet there because I've got Mbeumo on the bench. But again, Man City are conceding these consolation goals or conceding first and then going on and scoring goals. So right now, Gvardiol hasn't quite given me the attacking returns because it's been more forward player from the other side of the pitch. So he's a slight concern this week. But again, it's just one game week. I can't panic on that as right now. So hopefully the only points that I see there is from Gabriel against Brentford. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they concede this week. Moving on to my midfield, and I'm much happier here. Saka away to Tottenham. I think Tottenham concede goals regularly, and I've said that a lot in this video. So apologies for Tottenham fans that are listening. Salah at home to Nottingham Forest. He's been in great form. Forest are a bit of a mixed bag, so you never know quite which side's going to turn up. But I feel that Salah is in such good form at the moment that the team seems to have not had any real lag with Arne Slot taking over. So I'm really happy there. Gordon against Wolves away. Wolves are conceding goals for fun right now. 6 against Chelsea recently. I think that Newcastle attack is going to have a lot of fun in this game, and I'm really hoping that Gordon gets a part of that. And then Eze are playing newly promoted Leicester at home. So Eze again has looked really sharp. He's been unlucky with a couple of decisions. He's hit the post. He scored in his last game. He's in a bit of form. He's still the talisman for that team. We think he's on penalties. So great opportunity there for Eze to pick up points as well. And then up front, Isak, very similar to Gordon, away to a very poor Wolves defence at the moment. I think there's some opportunities for scoring. I talked a lot about João Pedro in the comparisons, and I brought him in early. The only concern with João Pedro at the moment is minutes risk. He did come back late from the Brazil game. He got called up late. He went and has had. I know there was lots of people tracking his private jet back to see if he'd be back in time to get rested, get over his jet lag, and play again. Hertzler has come out in the press conference and said that he's good to go, so I'm okay with him being in my team right now. And then lastly, I have Muniz at home to West Ham. He's not really set the world alight. He's had opportunities. He's just not taking them right now. I'm happy for him to play. I think there's an opportunity for him to score. That West Ham defence has had a lot of change over the season, as well as the new manager coming in. So I think there hopefully will be opportunities for him there. And then on my bench, I've got Valdemarson, who's a backup for Flecken, so I can't even rotate there for this week, which is a bit of a concern. But again, it's just one game week. I can't have everyone every week. Umbremo is there on the bench. I have considered switching him out for either Muniz or for João Pedro, but right now he has the most difficult fixture, so it makes sense for him to be on the bench right now. And then Harwood, Bellis and Johnson are just my 4.0 defenders that's sitting there in case something goes terribly wrong on there. So the other option I could look at is bringing one of those in for one of my Arsenal defenders to see if they can pick up some points. But right now, I'm happy with the team. So let's look at what are my options before the Game Week 4 deadline. Okay, so here are the 4 options that I'm considering before the Game Week 4 deadline, and it's only a couple of hours away, so eventually I'll have to pull the trigger on that. So the first option is just do nothing. I've already spent my 2 free transfers. It will give me 1 free transfer next week. More information to think about it. The cons there is that my defence looks really, really struggling for points this week. It may be that Arsenal get a clean sheet against Tottenham, and that would be great. Hopefully, Man City get a clean sheet against Brentford. I'd also be happy if Brentford got a clean sheet against Man City, but all of those seem like long shots rather than the likeliness for this as well. So the cons there is that my defence is I don't expect a lot of points from my defence this week, and there's a lot of money tied up in that. The second option is to take a -4 and sell Gabriel for either Robertson or for Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I talked about them earlier when I looked at the comparison. And if I had to make a decision right now, just looking at the data, Trent Alexander-Arnold would be the better option for me just because of the effective ownership. He's got better attacking threat right now. The reason I've chosen Robertson in this point was just keeping the money in the bank, giving me options to upgrade further up the pitch later on. My forward line is quite cheap at the moment. So therefore, are there options for me to potentially move or use that money or save more money elsewhere and get to Haaland for Game Week 6 when his fixtures turn? So right now, the option 2 is sell Gabriel for Robertson. And of course, the advantage there is that Liverpool have really good fixtures over the next 4. It also frees up an Arsenal spot for me to be able to potentially bring in Havertz from Game Week 6 as well. And then my third option is bench Pedro or bench Muniz for Umbremo. Now, obviously there's a higher expected minutes at the moment for Umbremo over Pedro, just given the uncertainty with his flight back from Brazil. But the fixture is better for Pedro and for Muniz. So right now, that's my least favourite option on that as well. But let me know, guys, what would you do with my team? Which of these options do you think is going to get me the most points for Game Week 4 and moving forward? Let me know in the comments below. As always, everyone, thank you very much for watching FPL Fanzone. I know it's been a couple of weeks hiatus with the international break, so I'm really happy that the Premier League is back. Let me know what your thoughts on the player comparisons. Is that something you like? I'll look at doing those more in future videos. Feel free to drop any comments on players that you have questions around, and I'm happy to give you my opinion. Again, just giving you the facts that I have for you to make your own decisions on that as well. And if you've made it this far, please don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment. It really does help the channel as I'm looking to grow it throughout this season. My goal for this video is to get 10 likes, so can you help me achieve that? Good luck, and may all of your arrows be green.